My piece over the weekend was about Harare, Khartoum and Kinshasa. I called it, "It's the End Game in Harare, in Khartoum and in Kinshasa." I was reading the African Development Bank Group's 2019 AEO economic release, which is rather a well put together report. And in that report, the AFDB pronounced that Africa's average inflation fell from 12.6% in 2017 to 10.9% in 2018 and is projected to further decline to 8.1% in 2020. Inflation is highest in South Sudan at 188% due to the lingering economic crises. Inflation is lowest at 2% or less in members of the Central African Economic and Monetary Community and the West African Economic and Monetary Union, and particularly in members of the CFA zone because of its link to the euro. There is a ubiquitous meme that Africa is not a country, and that inflation continuum, 2% to 188%, confirms as much. A further dive into the inflation data and you will note some serious non-linear inflation spikes. In Bashir, Sudan, inflation rose to 72.94% in December. In Zimbabwe, inflation clocked 42.1% in December. Nothing close to the peak month of hyperinflation which occurred in the middle of November 2008, when the rate was estimated at 79,600,000,000%. DR Congo is somewhere around 25%, but data is difficult to gather as you would expect. I've been reading Yuval Noah Harari, and in his bestseller he says this about money. Money is accordingly a system of mutual trust, and not just any system of mutual trust. Money is the most universal and most efficient system of mutual trust ever devised. Cowrie shells and dollars have value only in our common imagination. Their worth is not inherent in the chemical structure of the shells and paper or their color or their shape. In other words, money isn't a material reality. It is a psychological construct. It works by converting matter into mind. Interesting point, isn't it? It's the truth about Bitcoin, I think. The point I'm seeking to make is that there is a correlation between high inflation and revolutionary conditions. Zimbabwe is a classic example where there are 9.3 billion of Zolars in banks compared to $200 million in reserves. That was last year in October. The mind game that ZANU-PF played on its citizens has evaporated in a puff of smoke. President Mnangagwa was cavorting around the world with his scarf. As violence unfolded on the streets, Mnangagwa traveled to Russia. He visited Kazakhstan, Belarus, Azerbaijan before he was meant to fly to the World Economic Forum in Davos, now cancelled, at the very moment that his citizens, like Roberto Duran, the second in his fight with Sugar Ray Leonard, turned away from Leonard towards the referee and quit by apparently saying "no más," no more in Spanish. The petrol price hike was the proximate cause and ignited the already dry tinder on the ground, Piers Pigu of the International Crisis Group. Sam Farai-Monroe told The Guardian the government can switch off the internet, which they've been doing all over Africa of late, but not to the frustrations of millions of people. I said to Al Jazeera in an interview about Gabon, what we're watching across this continent, whether it's Gabon, Sudan, DR Congo, I should have added Zimbabwe, Chad, Cameroon and others, is a kind of tipping point moment. Kapuscinski characterized the revolutionary moment thus: the choice of that moment is the greatest riddle of history. And he also said, if the crowd disperses, goes home, does not reassemble, we say the revolution is over. The crowd is growing on all the streets across the continent. What is clear to me is that Zimbabwe is at a tipping point moment. At the time of the Jasmine Revolution in Tunis, the crowds chanted, "We are not afraid, we're not afraid, we're afraid only of God." In Tunis, it was the self-immolation of Mohamed Bouazizi on the 17th of December 2010, which became a catalyst for the Tunisian revolution. I don't know where the match is coming from, but what I do know is that not even Dr. Benedict Oroma's Afreximbank, who have taken an enormous punt on Zimbabwe, can save the situation. There was a trend change on the street last week, and it strikes me that the long-suffering citizen has thrown off their fear. In Sudan, I saw this tweet from Deloya, singing an old Sudanese revolutionary song. "We sing in our prison as you tremble in your castle." Powerful, isn't it? President Bashir, whose prop is not a scarf but a jig, is hanging on by his fingertips. He has managed to claw his way back into position before and is a political Harry Houdini. Otherwise, he would not have lasted more than 3 decades. But it's clear these are the last days or the end times. In DR Congo, the Constitutional Court has declared Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo the president. It is widely accepted that he received 20% or thereabouts of the vote versus Martin Fayulu, who received about 60%. Fayulu told the FT's Thomas Wilson, "I won't let the victory of the Congolese people be stolen. If they don't get the truth now, no one will trust any election ever again." Fact. The announced result is the equivalent of overturning Cyril Ramaphosa, who will surely win the election in 2019, and investing Mumisi Maimane as president. It was a clever ruse by the outgoing President Kabila, but it just won't stand in my view. We are in the end game now. It might be tomorrow, it might be months away, but make no mistake, it's the end game in Harare, in Khartoum, and in Kinshasa.